All right, today we are diving deep into one of the most incredible stories from the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're talking about Lord Vishnu's very first avatar, Matsya, the fish. This is an epic tale about faith, about doing what you're told, and about how far you have to go to protect wisdom when the entire world is about to be washed away.
But let's kick things off with a big question, one that really gets to the heart of this whole thing. Imagine everything is about to be wiped out, not just people and places, but the very ideas that hold society together, wisdom itself. How on earth do you save that? Well, this story has a pretty amazing answer.
So let's get into it. Our story doesn't start with chaos or a big battle. It starts with a person. It starts with a king who was chosen for a pretty incredible divine encounter. You have to picture the scene. The world is in a really perilous state. Things are out of balance. And as the stories tell us, this is exactly when Lord Vishnu makes an appearance to protect creation. And this time around, the person he decides to connect with is a noble king named Satyavrata. So why this guy? Why Satyavrata? Well, he wasn't just some run-of-the-mill ruler. He was known for being a man of incredible virtue. The texts say he was always truthful, he had amazing self-control, and he was completely devoted to Lord Vishnu. And maybe most importantly, he cared for his people like they were his own kids. And right there, that's our first big takeaway from this story. Real leadership, it isn't about raw power or authority. It's about character. The king's devotion wasn't just some private belief. It was the wellspring of his wisdom and his compassion as a leader. All right, let's see where this goes, because this huge, cosmic story, it all gets set in motion by one tiny, simple act. So get this. King Satyavrata is down by the river, just going about his daily rituals. He cups some water in his hands, and plop, a tiny little fish falls in. And then something totally impossible happens. The fish starts talking. And its plea is so simple, so desperate. "O king, please protect me. Bigger fish will eat me." Now the king doesn't know it yet, but this is a test. Is this powerful man going to show kindness to the smallest, most helpless creature? What Satyavrata does next is a perfect example of what's known as dharma, doing the right thing. By showing compassion to this tiny fish, he actually attracts divine grace. He doesn't think twice. He just takes the fish and puts it in a water pot to keep it safe. And this is where the story shifts gears, you know? It goes from a simple act of kindness to a full-blown, mind-bending miracle. Because the very next day, that tiny fish has already grown too big for the pot. So the king moves it to a well. But pretty soon, it outgrows the well too. He then takes it to a lake, and sure enough, it becomes too big for the entire lake. Finally, he takes it to the ocean, and unbelievably, the fish just keeps on growing. I mean, faced with this totally impossible, ever-expanding creature, the king finally puts it all together. He realizes, wait a second, this is no ordinary fish. He understands that he's not just saving a creature, he's in the presence of the Supreme Lord himself. And that moment of realization, that's the real turning point. The mystery is over, and now the true reason for this whole incredible encounter is about to be revealed. The divine fish, now clearly Lord Matsya, speaks again. But this time, it's not asking for help. It's delivering a chilling prophecy. He reveals his true identity as Lord Vishnu and warns the king, in just 7 days, a massive flood is coming that will destroy everything. But this isn't just a doom and gloom warning. It comes with a mission. The king is given a very specific to-do list. He has to build a huge, strong boat. On that boat, he needs to gather the 7 great sages, the keepers of all wisdom. He also has to save the seeds of every plant and pairs of every animal. And crucially, he must protect the sacred scriptures, the Vedas. So, what does the king do? He obeys. He doesn't question it. And just like the prophecy said, the storm comes. And now faith becomes the only thing that can keep them afloat. The sky goes black, the rain comes down in sheets, and the oceans just rise up and swallow the land. But in the middle of all that chaos, Lord Matsya appears, now impossibly huge and glowing with a divine light. King Satyavrata ties his boat to the great fish's horn, and the avatar starts pulling them, guiding them through the raging waters. So let's think about what was really saved on that boat. It wasn't just the king and some animals. No, it was the sages, who represent living, breathing wisdom. It was the seeds of life, the potential for all of creation to begin again. And it was the Vedas, the timeless, sacred knowledge of humanity. This whole part of the story is making a really profound point. Knowledge is just as important as life itself. The whole point of the mission wasn't just to survive, but to make sure that the wisdom needed to rebuild a better world would be carried safely into the future. And after the storm finally passes, the story doesn't just end. It closes with a brand new beginning.
When the waters finally go down, Lord Matsya gives the king one last instruction: rule this new world wisely and spread Dharma. Because he showed such incredible faith and obedience, King Satyavrata gets a new name and a much bigger purpose. He becomes Vaivasvata Manu, the father of humanity for the entire age we living now.
And that really gets to the ultimate message of the story, doesn't it? It's a powerful idea about what happens when you combine faith with action. When you listen to that divine guidance and you act on it with compassion, you create a kind of protection that even the biggest, scariest storm can't break through.
So the story of Matsya was all about saving ancient wisdom for a new era. And that kind of leaves us with a question for our own time, right? As we face our own challenges, what's the essential knowledge? What's the core wisdom that we need to protect and carry forward for the people who come after us?